Hello friends and welcome to the channel. In this video we are going to be looking at using 3D decals for the first time and see how that goes, seeing how well water pencil colours are for weathering, using 3D resin upgrades, and not forgetting to remove before flight. So grab yourself a brew and a bicky and let's get into this build. Right, so as we start with the cockpit, as you can see I've removed a lot of the panels because I'm going to be using some of these 3D printed, well they're supposed to be decals but they don't really work like decals unless I've misunderstood these new fangled things. But yeah, as you can see I've had to remove them the same as you would using photo etch. So unless I've got the whole 3D decal thing wrong, which there's a very good chance of, I did as they say, you know, soak them in water and slide them off and pop them onto where they're supposed to go. Now, I actually did find out that if you've got to pop your knife underneath the decal, they will actually just pop off, so you didn't even have to worry about doing that, because when I did them the way they're supposed to, they didn't stick to anything. So I had to use white glue to stick these down into place. Now, these are Edard's decals. And like a lot of the colour photo etch stuff, unless it's an all black panel, the colours never match the cockpit. So unless, you know, Tamiya's got the colours wrong, I'm not really sure, because I'm not very good with jets in particular. So I've had to go around all the light blue parts on the instrument panel and delicately paint them in the same colour as I have painted the top. And there we go with that done. I don't actually think I did too bad a job, considering I'm not very good at delicate painting. All I had to do then was just stick the sides on, which again a couple of those had a couple of the decals. Unfortunately they were all black panels, so I could just stick them straight onto the model. Now the next part of the assembly is adding the wheel well. Now fortunately I for some reason thought of this quite earlier on. Now I'm using an upgrade undercarriage from Detail Wonder, and exceptional undercarriage detail these are. The main leg, or the retractable part of the leg, if you want, I'd actually fitted the original kit part in already, and fortunately it hadn't been in there that long, so the glue was still wet, and I'd realised that this part actually needs to go in, so I had to remove that, and I managed to slot that in, and it fitted actually within pretty well. As you can see, I snipped off a little bit of the tab from one of the pulling arm of the leg, just to get it to fit properly. I didn't really want to add this early on, but unfortunately the way it builds up I actually had to add it early, because I was a little bit worried about damaging any of the detail, because there is a lot of fine detail on these undercarriage parts, which we'll see a bit better later on. I'd also purchased some upgrade seats for these from Aries. Now the seats and the undercarriage aren't, I mean, to be fair, any upgrades for this kit aren't necessarily needed, but I was watching that model guy and he did suggest, you know, maybe upgrade areas are the seats, the undercarriage and the exhaust pipes. And I thought, you know what, actually, I did look at the kit and I thought they were alright, but I thought, you know what, yeah, sod it, why not? I like myself a bit of aftermarket stuff. So, with these seats, as you've seen, I have got a damp towel underneath and use a razor saw. This was just to keep all the resin dust down, because this stuff you really don't want to be, you know, inhaling, because obviously it's not going to do your lungs any good. So you can see here the two seats side by side, the original ones from the kit. So they're alright, you know, they're not too bad. They do come with figures, so if you're going to put the figures in, probably choose the original seats. But these ones from Aries are fantastically detailed. I've done a relatively simple-ish job on these. So basing the seats in a sort of a black colour and dry brushing a little bit of white over all the raised details to pick those out, and you know, give it a little bit of an aged look, a little bit scuffing rather than just using straight up silver, because sometimes I do like to use like a white or an off-white colour to pick out detail, especially on black stuff like instrument panels, if I'm not going to be using decals for that. Now I've sort of eyeballed the colours from reference photos, so I do apologise if they're not the exact right colours, but from what I've seen from the references, that this looks relatively right. So, but I was really actually quite chuffed on how I did these, because you know, sometimes like sort of like hand painting stuff, I still feel like it's an area I need to sort of do a bit more work on. But I was actually, you know, it says really chuffed on how these seats turned out. And again, by eye, from the photos, reference photos, I've seen sort of like I've done this sort of like whitey, creamy grey seat belts, and picked up again the metal parts with a little bit of silver to make those bits pop. And then painting the ejection ball handles again. With one of the upgrade sets I actually got these, but they just looked a bit flat. As you may have seen a bit previous with the two seats side by side, I'd put a bit of black super glue around there just to thicken them out a little bit more, make them look a little bit more realistic. After putting the wash over, I then went over pretty much everything again, just sort of picking out the highlights there again, just to make these seats pop out a little bit more. And there we go. I will be putting these seats in a little bit later. I sort of wanted to kind of do the cockpit area kind of like in order, but the way Tamiya have you build this up, some parts are in odd areas. I feel that they're in odd areas, but that's me. So yes, yeah, so technically the seats are done, added to the aircraft a little bit later. As we come to fit in the cockpit tub and the wheel bay, I've got some nice, as you can see, very nice big chunky locator pins to go in, and like this whole assembly section fits together extremely well and really nice. There's a nice satisfying click as the two parts go together. We do have a little bit of a seam on the nose, but if you put these two parts together properly, this polishes out really easily. As we move up to the upper fuselage section, we start putting the wing mechanism in. Really simple again to put together. A couple of screws, a couple of washers to fit in. Obviously, if you don't screw it down too much, you know, you've got a nice bit of movement on those wings. Then we need to put the rear half of the upper fuselage on. It's a bit odd for me to actually have to fit my fuselages from top to bottom rather than left to right. We also have a sort of like supporting bar, if you like, just to keep the mechanism in place. So if you want to play around with it a bit later on, the teeth for the wings don't obviously slide out and come out of place. So the thing we have to put to the lower half of the aircraft are the wheel well walls. I'm trying to say that several times fast and drunk. They're made up of about 5 parts, if I remember rightly, and you literally just have to put them in as almost one piece, and then put the last part in as we complete the bay. Really, it's very simple. I'm drawing this out longer than it needs to. So once that's done and dried, we just have to put the obviously the lower half with the upper. And like for the cockpit, we've got some nice chunky locator pins, and again fits really nicely. We then can put the intakes in. These are made up of about 3 parts. So there's like the actual intake itself at the rear and the sort of front outlet. You can get upgrade parts for this, as make it as one piece, so you haven't got the seams. But to be honest with you, it sits that far back, I wouldn't bother. You know, you're not really going to see that at all. And again, pretty much same as everything that's the fit with this is you've got a nice little snap fit, run a bead of glue around, and Bob's your uncle. If he's called Bob, that's, you know, interesting. I would also suggest at this point spraying the intakes the relevant colours. So in the case of this is white, just makes it a lot easier. And fortunately, because in all honesty, the bottom of the aircraft is all white anyway on this particular version, but if you are doing one that's got a different colour, do the intakes white first. It's going to make it easier rather than trying to paint them later on. So all you have to do is just mask them off. And then we can marry the front to the back, and again, a really nice fit. Now I kind of made a little bit of a mistake. Now it was not a big issue really, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to paint the wings off the model. Now me getting a little bit excited seeing all this coming together, I decided to put the wings on to the model and just, you know, go, "Ooh, look, it's really good," and seeing it all working and all that. And it turns out the wings were still a little bit wet, and they are now stuck to the model, so I can't paint them separate. So it's a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. Now we have a couple of options for the wings. Is that we can have them out permanently, or we can have them in the closed position. Now fortunately for the closed position, you can actually still open and close the wings, but with the open, you have to have the wings basically fixed out, because you see me adding the little airbag at the back of that. There's two different types for that as well. So if you want it to look accurate, you know, having the wings open, then you need to have that one. But if you want to have kind of like a bit of a play with it, if you like, obviously use the other one. So one of the other options also within the kit that you can have is to have the access ladders or access platforms open. There is a ladder that comes with the kit as well, and obviously this is if you want to have the cockpit open. I mean, you could have it closed and have mats, it's entirely up to you. I'm going for the full closed up look, because I've decided I wanted to try and do a few more models sort of like a little bit more slick with the canopies closed and give them the full, you know, profile look. So that's the one I'm going for on this one. So all you have to do with these is just cut off the locating tabs that were already molded onto it for the open position. As you can see, that you can have like that. Obviously this is, I've cut them off and have them enclosed. Speaking of closing things up, I've used the canopy as its own mask rather than filling it out with bits of foam. You can also see the photo etch details we've got there, the wind mirrors and some of the framing as well for that, which come with the interior detail set that I've got for this kit. One of the other details as well I got was a replacement pitot tube, which also came with an angle of attack probe. Now, to be fair, the one that's on the kit actually is alright. Again, something I didn't really need to get, but I can't help myself. Sometimes I do like to have a nice metal pitot tube. And as a just added bonus with this really is that it comes with the angle of attack probe. Easily fitted. I mean, the replacement part actually is the same size as the original probe, obviously. So all we have to do is cut that off, drill a hole, and super glue that into place. So I want to do a bit of pre-shading. I want to stick with the upgrades for a second and give a massive shout out to Hannants. Now, I ordered all these upgrades off their website, but I actually managed to go down and actually visit the store in person down in London. The store is actually located next to the Royal Air Force Museum London, or RF Museum Hendon. And I went and saw the guys and actually bought my next project for them. And the guys down there are absolute legends. They're really nice, they're great blokes. The store itself is fantastic. It's just jam-packed full of kits and paints and all sorts of stuff, and some great built models in display cases as well to have a bit of a look at. But mainly the guys in there, they were really great, they're really helpful and extremely knowledgeable. So if you're in the area, go and give the guys a visit, or also obviously, you know, help them out by using their shop online to help keep the shop going. Now, while I'm giving stores a shout out, I also want to give Alex's a shout out. So this is Alex from Man's Model Moments. His store is, if you're in the North Devon area, not 2 million miles away from Bath, in Wincanton. I think that's how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going to go with. Alex is a good friend of mine, and I managed to go down to his store on the way down to Cornwall a few months ago. Alex, just as very much the same as the guys down at Hannants. He's a great bloke, really knowledgeable. It's a fairly new store, and it's also the reason why I'm giving both these guys shouts out, because, you know, bricks and mortar stores are few and far between these days, and it's actually nice to be able to physically go into a store, look at the kits, look at the stuff, and, you know, actually speak to somebody that actually knows a little bit about modelling and that can help you out while you're there. So, like it says, Man's Model Moments, if you're down in Somerset, or if you're down London way, Hannants, you know, give those guys a visit and you know, help them out and spend a few monies. I'm not sponsored by any means by these guys. It's just, you know, I think they're both, you know, worthy of giving a shout out. So back to the painting. I really wanted to make sure that I did a really good pre-shading for this, because I wanted this to be a early sort of weathering step, because again, reference photos I've seen of these aircraft, and hence one of the reasons why I wanted to do one, because they are quite weathered aircraft being carrier based. So as you can see with this one, I'm painting it without any form of crown cap on whatsoever. Now the problem doing it this way is, as you probably already know, is that the needles tend to dry up quite easily, and I've had a nice little sort of trick to clean them. Rather than trying to pinch it or clean it up, is I've got one of these little shot glasses, and I've cut a little bit of a gap out the top to get the cup in, and just very, preferably lightly, spray a bit of air into it. It actually cleans it up quite nicely, and just give it a bit of a dry spray without spraying the paint through to get rid of any excess thinner that's on top of the needle. So this entire model I have painted up in using Gallery's airbrushes. I've been using them for a while now, and I've generally really been enjoying using them. Now I wouldn't, you know, I'm not a Sherlin or anything like that. You know, I'll always tell you honestly when I'm using stuff whether I think it's any good or not. And I personally have actually generally been enjoying these airbrushes. I have got a review out on the 98D Gallery airbrush, but I've also been using on this one as well, the Mobius 3. They're really good brushes. Go and check out my video, go and check out that channel as well and see what you think. But if you are interested with these brushes and thinking about purchasing one, I have an affiliate link down below in the description. Of course, it's no extra cost to you, it just means that I get a little bit of pennies from each sale. Also down there is a discount down there, so if you use Sully010, that will also get you a few percentages off your final purchase, and again also helps out the channel. So while I've been prepping on, you've seen that I have masked off the lower half of the wing, the control surfaces, because this is painted white in the scheme that I am doing, and I've used vinyl tape for this. You can get this in A4 sheets. It's the same stuff that you tend to get for masking of some canopies, and if you want to have masking for painting your own markings and demarcations and all that sort of thing. And that's just really good stuff to use, especially for those bigger surfaces rather than using masking tape. You see, using a cocktail stick to burnish it down, cut it off, and then remove the excess. Also at this point, the lower half of the aircraft have been painted white, and I start painting the upper surface in a grey colour. I can't remember what I used for this, because I used quite a bit of a mash of colours to try and get what I thought was the right colour. But you can see here me using the Mobius 3, and you can see the nice faded lines that we're getting between the white and the grey there. As you can see, I've done it all by hand, giving, again, a nice feathered look between the two colours. But one of the most important things I need to do is make sure that these coats are relatively light to let the pre-shading underneath come through, and again basically do most of the heavy lifting for me later on in the weathering stage. So what I've done here for the grip tape over the one wing, I have used some Tamiya putty for this. Now they do give you a decal for this, so you don't have to do this, but I wanted to give the more realistic look of a gripped walkway. So just mixing some Tamiya extra thinning with this. It's the same sort of thing I've done for cast texturing, and all I've done, as you can see, I've already masked the area off exactly the same as the decal, and stippled it on, give it a bit of a light sanding so it wasn't too rough, and then that gives us a nice grip tape texture basically. And then obviously painted it in a blacky grey colour. So I've just used for this NATO black and added a little bit of flat black in there, and I've used these pretty much the exact same paint for the around the cockpit area, I just added a little bit of extra black in there just to darken it up a little bit more, so there's still a little bit of a variation there. Now again, they do give you decals for the front and rear part of the canopy, but then you've got to paint the rest in. Now the problem with that is that you're going to have two different colours, and you're also going to have two different finishes, because obviously the decal is going to be quite glossy, and obviously depending on how the paint comes out, you're going to have, you know, a different look altogether. Maybe after giving it a flat varnish or a matte varnish afterwards, it may tie the two in, but what I do personally is mask it off completely and paint it yourself. That's my advice for that. It depends on obviously what you feel comfortable. Another couple of bits of advice if you are, you know, masking off and spraying, is that when you spray down the edge of the tape, try and spray parallel to the tape rather than down on it. A couple of reasons being is the fact that it's going to stop you having a step in the paint job. So also, actually, three tips is that just make sure that they're light layers as well, and also it should stop any paint bleed if you haven't missed, you know, because sometimes when you're pushing the tape down, you don't always burnish it down properly, and you can get bleeds. But again, if you spray parallel to the tape, there's a better chance, and again, light layers, there is a better chance that you shouldn't get any paint bleeds underneath the tape. I was fortunate, actually, I only had two very small bleeds on this. Again, it was more the fact that I hadn't burnished the tape down properly rather than anything else in this case. But there you go, a nice paint mask reveal, and some pretty sharp lines, if I do say so myself. So with this build, I've also tried to do things a little bit different than doing what I normally do. Now, I've wanted to give weathering pencils a bit of a go, but I didn't really want to pay the price, and I thought I'd just get some watercolour pencils. And it turns out these are practically the same things. The only difference is that water pencils are damn sight a lot cheaper. Now, what I've done is I've used a grey, because it matched closely with the model, which I would have done if I'd have done oils in the case of this. And basically I just wet the pencil, run it down the lines of the panels, and with tap water and a clean brush, just basically done the same as what I would do again with the panel liner, and just pushed it into all the corners and crevices. I also used it as a little bit of a filter as well, and actually felt that this turned out really well. Again, looking at reference photos, I felt it mimicked the sort of weathering that you would see on. When it comes down to the decals, this kit I have used the Tamiya's decals. Now, I know a lot of people say that their decals are very thick. I will be tending to decline to agree with that, but I don't have that many issues with them. I just find if you put enough microset and microsol down on them, or a similar product, I tend to find that that works fine. Also, if you particularly when you put the microset on and let it dry a little bit, is use a cocktail stick very really very gently, push it into the panels, and then once it's dried again, put another layer of microsol over that, and I tend to find that they go down pretty well. Now, I did have a little bit of a disaster. Now, I'd also forgotten which tail plane was which side, and also I did dry fit it to the model. I thought I got the right, because these left and right. It turns out I didn't, because I was too excited about getting these decals on, because these are the ones that really set it off. The 103 Fighting Squadron of the Jolly Rogers. Obviously, you can tell that I have put. Now I've said this, I have put them on the wrong side. Now, it was really annoying because I was really chuffed the fact that I got this decal down super sweet. No air bubbles. I managed to get everything out. It was nice and flat, and then realised that it was on the wrong one. And I thought it was the fact that I don't just put this decal down, it shouldn't be too hard to get it off. My God, was I wrong. I literally had to scrape the decal off. In the end, no matter how many times I sanded it, I couldn't get it smooth, so I had to completely strip it using isopropyl alcohol, reorder some decals and do it all over again. But in the end, they look pretty sweet. Once that was done, I could then move back into more weathering. I gave everything a gloss varnish. So for all the black, I used Migamo's pale stone grey for black, and I went around, this is obviously the around the canopy, the tails, and I also used it around these main decals as well. Again, mainly pushing it into the panels and recesses, but also mushed it around a little bit just to give it a bit of a sort of dirt look, which I felt actually worked out really well. There's something else I wanted to do differently. I wanted to try and start actually using actual oils rather than using the pre-mixed stuff for weathering, because I've got quite a lot of cheap oils and they're generally a lot cheaper as well, even though I've bought some Winsor & Newtons which are a little bit more expensive, but they last. So for the entire top of the aircraft, I used yellow ochre and burnt umber for all this. Did it as you see me doing it as a dot filter with the dry brush. I just blended. And for any of the white, I used a pale grey from Winsor & Newton. For the drop tanks, I used exactly the same. I also added some burnt sienna in there, which I think I also actually used on the top surface as well. As you can see, this is exactly how we're doing it on the top, using the dry brush. I'm actually using the makeup, I think it's a blusher brush. These brushes are great. They're a lot cheaper than the specific ones for modelling and artistry and all that sort of business. These work just as well. They're a lot cheaper, so you know, you don't have to worry about screwing them up. And to be honest with you, they do last a long time as well. So the thing is, one of the bonuses about using oil paints is that they take an extreme long time to dry out, so good 24-48 hours thereabouts. So you can, you know, if you're not happy with it later on, you can remove it and then, you know, rework it later on, or even just rework what you've already got, add in extra paints or whatever to get the finish that you're after. I also use the same again for the underside, using again reference photos and trying to get the same look as what I'd seen in the photos. I use the same, pretty much the same mix of colours, and in this case, at this point, it was more of a heavy dilution of the paint, just using some white spirits or odourless thinners for this. Again, because we've got a gloss coat down, or a semi-gloss coat, you know, we can play around with these a little bit more and smush them around a little bit. As you can see, I've done the same for this oil stain, which is something I want to try and do a little bit more often. So I'll just use the yellow ochre and raw umber for this. Now we'll go back to the undercarriage. Now, as I said before, these are from Detail and Wonder, and this is the 3D resin printed. They come in this nice little cage. The packaging they come in is also fantastic, which keeps them all nice and safe. Obviously, be very careful on what you're snipping. They do tell you in the instructions on how to remove these, which is really good, which you don't always get. But just be very careful, because there are a hell of a lot of fine details. You can see a lot of the wires and stuff there as well. They also come with some metal rods to feed into the legs to add some stability there as well. Of course, they also come with the wheels. Unfortunately, I snapped part of the hub, which you won't see until the glamour shots. But the one thing I wanted to do, which I wouldn't normally do, is I wanted to put the inner basically brake disc in, because there are two small hoses, as you can see there. They actually have two very small locating pins that go onto the leg. Now, I wanted to make sure that these were in the right position for later on down the road, so I thought I'll stick these on now, because it's not going to make much difference, because they're going to be painted white the same as the rest of the leg. And I can paint the wheels separately without getting it all over the leg, basically. And what I'll do is I'll fit them pretty relatively dry and add some super glue in later on to make sure they fit properly. Again, you see the nice detail there on, and you can see here one of those rods that I mentioned earlier that goes through basically through the wheel and the lower leg, which again just giving the whole thing a little bit of extra support, which I think is actually really good, actually, because you just don't know, because this is quite, you know, a heavy model and you know, resin can be a little bit delicate. And you can see that a little bit better here with the front undercarriage leg. We've got that nice big metal rod that runs all the way through, and which is also a guide pin when you fit it to the upper half, if you like, of the front undercarriage. The one thing I will say about the front undercarriage is that I think it sits too high. I think it's too far extended. I'm not an expert on these aircraft, but it has always looked to me that the front sits quite low, so I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, but you know, feel free, somebody that actually does know better than I do on these things, to put it in the comment section for us. The front light also comes with a nice little lens cover as well, so I've painted the inside with a chrome pen to give that, you know, reflective finish on the inside, and using some white glue there to stick that front lens on the front. They actually do give you a spare one. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if another aircraft uses the same undercarriage and has two lights, or they just think you might lose or break it. There's a possibility, but nice ad, and I think it just adds fantastic detail. I will also say the fit of the main undercarriage is pretty good. It's a little bit tight, but once you've got it slotted in, it fits quite nicely. And in fact, if I remember rightly, I don't think I actually even glued these into place. They are quite tight, or I may have added just a tad on there, but yeah, the issue you sort of have with this, you see me fiddling and saying they're going easy. There's a little notch that goes in on the side of the fuselage. It's just trying to get that into place. I think as well, because I've still got quite a lot of paint around the main peg that fits it on to the inside of the wheel well. I should have removed a bit, but they are quite simple, and I made that look a lot harder than it actually was, I think, to be honest with you. But you know, they are nice. And then all it is adding pretty much all the accessories, if you like, the fuel tanks and all the weapons. Now, what else I want to do with this model is have it in sort of, if you like, a state of readiness. So I wanted to add the remove before flight tags, but not obviously like the intake covers. So the only thing I really need to do with the weapons was add a cap over the sidewinders, and all I did was use a bit of like a blister pack, heated up with a lighter or a little like a blowtorch type sort of thing, and then basically forced the missile into there, and it gave it the shape. So it made a nice little cap. Cut that off, added a little small bit of wire into the top, made a little bit of a loop, and obviously you see I've got these remove before flight tags, added a bit of wire into them, and then all I had to do then was try and loop it round into that hole at a reasonable length and attempt to tie it off. It's a little bit fiddly, as you can see. I've had to speed this a little bit up just to get through it, but yeah, add a little bit of super glue on there to make sure it stays on there, because I wasn't confident on how much I'd done it up. One of the last things to add were these the jet pipes. Now, as you can see, I bought resin upgrades for this. I kind of wish I didn't use them. I don't think you really need to use them, but you can see I had to remove a hell of a lot of material. So again, because it's resin, do it outside, or at least a very well ventilated space. But I did this outside because I had to take a lot of stuff to remove it, and obviously wear a face mask, you know, just to stop them little dust particles going in. As you can see, sort of the final things bringing it together are those beautiful tail fins. Now you can also see I've added a few of the remove before flight tags around the pitot tubes. All I did was super glue a little bit of masking tape around them to fit them the right size, and again super glued those into place. I also added some into the ejection seats, which you see in the glamour shots. I forgot to put this in, but I also put some connected to the sort of the arming pins for the ejector seats, again seen in reference photos. And I also tinted the front windscreen. So again, I've been trying a little bit, and this one actually turned out really well. So literally I just used some Mr. Leveling thinner and a clear blue from Tamiya, and just very light layers building up the opacity to what I wanted for it. It's just be very careful with it, because obviously, you know, using thinners on a clear part, and that usually fogs it. This is really thin, light layers, and it turned out quite nicely, which I was really surprised about, and something I was really worried about doing. I also want to give another couple of shout outs. It's been a very shout out video, basically on the point of the clear windscreen. That model guy, I'll link his channel in the description down the bottom. He helped me out getting the best results for that. I also followed his video for a lot of the weathering on this as well. And on that note, a shout out to Skeleton. He's recently brought a video out on this exact same build. Obviously not this one, because this one's mine, but the same model and in the same scheme, because I was struggling to find references for the scheme and how to weather it. And you know, I know they didn't, you know, I didn't ask them for anything or anything like that, but it's just the fact that they come out at the right time, and I just wanted to point, you know, you guys in their direction. So, you know, give their videos a watch. They are absolutely fantastic. They're both awesome modelers, and I says, without their indirect help, has helped me with this build, and you know, I think it's turned out, you know, really good, considering I says I'm not used to doing jets. So please let me know what you think on how I've done this build in the comments section down below. It's always nice to hear your guys' feedback. Okay friends, it's nearly time to show you the finished build, but before that I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and hopefully you've picked up a few new tips and tricks along the way through this build. Now, very quickly, again, I want to give a massive shout out to Alex from Man's Model Moments and Hannants of London. Check those guys out. Again, bricks and mortar stores, we need to support and keep those guys open, so there's a links in the description down below. And I also want to give another shout out quickly to John Alex Gow Modelling for being a channel member. If you guys would like to help support the channel further, there are links in the description down below. But if not, again, just watching, sharing, liking the videos, commenting, all that sort of business helps the channel massively and helps it grow. I want to try and really get this channel going this year. We've had a lot of setbacks, but this year, or the rest of this year, I want to get there. I'd like to hopefully get to about 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do that this year. Again, thanks so much for watching. Again, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I hope you finish the model. So until next time, I don't know, but I'll see you next time.
574, take angles 1.2, straight ahead, traffic is crosswind. Rhino angles 1.2. 574, take angles 1.2, straight ahead, traffic is crosswind. Rhino angles 1.2. You almost cycle that number. 377, confirming the hook. Ready. 356, rock off 1.5 mile safety. 356, curve fly mode, field west flight. 574, clear downwind, 14 heading 120. 311 on 14, going off on 1. Roger, boss. Trail. 377, confirming the hook. Ready. 356, rock on 4.5 mile safety. 356, curve fly mode, field push fly. 574, clear downwind, 14 heading.